Good morning, friends, and good morning, security gang. Welcome to another episode of the CyberHub Podcast, Wednesday, August 13th, 2025. And if you're feeling overwhelmed, Patch Tuesday, we're going to bring it all under the kind of umbrella here, break it down for y'all, simplify it, and really there's light at the end of this unbelievable tunnel. There's light. Now, I'm going to say this. I think that as more and more AI tools are introduced for defenders, we're going to have a lot more vulnerabilities. And so if you think yesterday was rough, I would urge you to just take it all in stride, because I think the next 2 to 3 years are going to be really, really rough. As more AI tools get introduced to help detect vulnerabilities within our environments, we're going to see a lot more vulnerabilities. And it's going to be overwhelming. And Patch Tuesdays are going to get like astronomical numbers. That's my prediction. Putting it out there, but it's true. All right, packed show. Let's get into it. If you haven't subscribed, followed, shared, liked, or commented, please make sure to do so. Like, we love feedback. We love to hear from all y'all. So let's get the ball rolling this morning, because we've got a lot to talk about, including Microsoft's August 2025 Patch Tuesday, fixing 107 flaws, including one publicly disclosed zero-day vulnerability in the Windows Kerberos. This Patch Tuesday also fixed 13 critical vulnerabilities, 9 of which were remote code execution vulnerabilities, 3 are information disclosure, and 1 is elevation of privilege. If you break it down by vulnerability category, 44 were elevation of privilege vulnerabilities, 35 had remote code execution vulnerabilities, 18 information disclosure, 4 denial of service, and 9 spoofing vulnerabilities. To learn more about some of these non-specific updates, there's dedicated articles within Microsoft around some of this, but the zero-day is the Windows Kerberos elevation of privilege vulnerability. That's CVE 2025-53779er. Microsoft fixed the flaw that would allow an unauthenticated attacker to gain domain admin privileges. So again, it's a zero-day, yes, but in order for the attacker to actually take advantage of this specific vulnerability, they'd have to be able to compromise your users, which history tells us not very hard to do. So relative path traversals in Windows Kerberos allows an authorized attacker to elevate privileges over the network. So there's a whole bunch of additional updates around this. Let's get into Fortinet and Ivanti, both publishing new security advisories about vulnerabilities fixed as part of August Patch Tuesday. Fortinet published 14 advisories. The most critical is CVE 2025-25256. That's the FortiSIM flaw that allows an unauthenticated remote attacker to execute arbitrary code or commands through a specially crafted CLI request. Fortinet warned that the practical exploit for this vulnerability has been found in the wild, and the company's phrasing is suggesting that it hasn't not been exploited for malicious purposes yet, but because the proof of concept exploit is public, it's likely forthcoming. 2 advisories had high severity ratings. One of them is CVE 2025-52970. It's an authentication bypass affecting FortiWeb. It would allow a remote attacker to log in as any existing user by leveraging a specially crafted request. And the second high severity issue is CVE 2024-26009er, impacts FortiOS, FortiPAM, FortiProxy, and FortiSwitch Manager. It would allow an unauthenticated attacker to seize control of a managed device via crafted FG/FM request if the device is managed by a FortiManager and if the attacker knows the FortiManager serial number. So a lot of data there. Ivanti also publishing updates describing 3 different advisories. One covers 2 high-severity authenticated remote code execution vulnerabilities in Avalanche. The second describes a medium-severity issue in Ivanti, Virtual Appliance Delivery Control. That's their VADC, that would allow remote authenticated attackers to reset admin passwords and take over targeted accounts. All of those were patched up. There's no known exploits as of yet, so the Chinese haven't cracked these Ivanti vulnerabilities just quite yet. Adobe also updating and fixing more than 60 different vulnerabilities in their stack across 3D design, content creation, publishing, and other products. 13 new advisories, including 5 that cover vulnerabilities in Substance 3D products like Viewer, Modular, Painter, Sampler, and Stager. In each one of them, Adobe patched 1 or more critical high-severity vulnerabilities that were remote code execution vulnerabilities, or in some of them, multiple important medium severity memory leaks. In Commerce and the Magento open source solution, Adobe fixed 4 critical vulnerabilities that can be exploited for privilege escalation, denial of service, and arbitrary file system read, along with 2 security feature bypass issues. In Animate, they patched 1 critical arbitrary code execution vulnerability and a memory leak. And in Illustrator, it addressed 3 code execution flaws and 1 denial of service. So you want to make sure you get your Adobe stack patched up. SAP fixed more than a dozen vulnerabilities as well. The ERP giant called Security Patch Day 15 new security notes haven't released with 4 updates to previous fixes. Unopsys, a company specializing in enterprise application security, which often finds SAP product vulnerabilities, pointed out the vendor released a total of 26 new and updated fixes since the previous Patch Tuesday. Of these 26 fixes, 4 have been classified as hot news or critical, including 2 that are new and 2 updates to previous patches. Those are CVEs 2025 429er50 and 429er57, which are described as code injection issues. They're kind of the same vulnerability, but different CVEs have been assigned to different products. So there's that there. CVE 429er57 has been assigned to the S/4HANA Enterprise ERP software, while 429er50 is the older generation of the ERP Central component. The high priority patches address a broken authentication issue in SAP Business, that's CVE 2025 429er51. It would allow an authenticated attacker to obtain admin privileges, and memory corruption in NetWeaver application server ABAP, that's CVE 2025 429er76. It can lead to sensitive information leaks. So you want to get your SAP system patched up. If you're in energy or in industrial control systems, you want to pay attention. Several advisories here from Siemens, 22 new advisories. One of them, CVE 2025-40746, is a critical semantic RTLS locating manager issue that could be exploited again by an authenticated attacker for code execution with system privileges. Whenever we talk about authenticated and unauthenticated, it's complexity of attack. For an attacker to be authenticated, in order to do this, means they have to be logged in as one of your users. Again, not very hard, but it adds a step, and that step is critical because if you're managing identity correctly, you're acquiring MFA, you're doing it as part of an SSO, then it's harder. When it's an unauthenticated attacker, it means that specifically if they're able to just get into your environment in any sort of way or identify a path in, they can take advantage of the vulnerability. Siemens also published advisories covering high severity vulnerabilities in Comos, Siemens Engineering Platforms, SimCenter, Cinemaric Controls, RuggedCom, and Sematic, SIP Protect, and Op Center Quality. So all of those there. Schneider Electric releasing 5 new advisories. One of them describes 4 high severity vulnerability in the EcoStruxure Power Monitoring Expert, Power Operation, and Power SCADA Operation products. Exploitation of these flaws can lead to arbitrary code execution or sensitive data exposure. And again, some of these are high severity denial of service vulnerability, which affect availability when used in these cases, could be critical for the business in terms of operation and availability, which is really critical in manufacturing and energy and in oil and gas, right? If you're not available, you're not on. Honeywell publishing 6 advisories focusing on building management products, including several advisories that inform customers about Windows patches for Max Pro and ProWatch NVR and VMS products. They also released advisories covering the PW series, access controller patches, and security enhancements. Aviva published security advisories for 2 issues in its PI integrator for business analytics. And ABB told customers on Tuesday that several vulnerabilities affecting its Aspect, Nexus, and Matrix products. Some of those flaws could be exploited without authentication for remote code execution. Phoenix Contacts also informed customers of a privilege escalation vulnerability in device and update management. So it's a misconfiguration that would allow a low-privileged local users to execute arbitrary code with admin privileges. So Rockwell Automation also publishing an advisory prior to Patch Tuesday, informing customers about several high-severity code execution vulnerabilities affecting its Arena simulation product. Mitsubishi also released an advisory on information tampering flaw in Genesis and MCWorks 64 products. Woo! Was that a lot or was that a lot? Was that a lot or was that a lot? It was a lot. It was a lot, right? It was a lot. This was the most extensive ICS Patch Tuesday I've ever seen, by the way. Just putting that out there. So Security Weeks, good job. Good job rounding this up. Really, bravo. All right, we move to ransomware attacks, where if you're in South Korea and you're a K-pop fan like yours truly, I mean, who doesn't love K-pop? I mean, who doesn't love K-pop? Well, South Korea's largest ticketing and online book retailer, Yes24. Yes, you can buy your tickets and books in the same places. Amazon, what have you been doing? Take Ticketmaster out. Said it has restored services after a second ransomware attack knocked its website and mobile app offline for several hours on Monday, causing absolute chaos for all K-pop fans. The disruption began around 4:30 a.m. local time, preventing customers from booking concert tickets, accessing their ebooks, or using community forums. Why I actually buy actual books. Sorry, I buy actual books. I still have books. Yes, if I was in the studio, you'd see them right behind me. They're not there for decoration. I actually read them. I don't believe in ebooks. The outage caused panic among some fans of K-pop band Day 6, whose general ticket sales for its Decades the Tour were scheduled to open at 8 p.m. the same day. Yes24, the exclusive ticketing partner for the concert, resumed sales as plans once services were restored. Ransomware also temporarily crippled Yes24 earlier this summer. An attack in June forced the company offline for 5 days, so they were a bit more resilient this time. It took them about 4 hours to get back online. But they would have had a mutiny. That company would have been invaded by all the K-pop girls and boys in South Korea going like, sell me tickets to Day 6. All right, whatever. It's fun story. But there it is. All right. The Allianz Life data breach that happened just a few weeks ago. Now Shiny Hunters is starting to leak data on their leak site from the company. While the company didn't name the provider, the incident was part of largely the Salesforce kind of targeted theft, where Salesforce wasn't hacked like Snowflake wasn't hacked. Customers using Salesforce and Snowflake who didn't have MFA, who maybe were reusing passwords, who were not using SSL, who had their information breached through user compromise. So there's that. So Allianz Life's the file consisted of accounts and contacts database tables. Again, obviously very, very Salesforcey. That's exactly how a Salesforce or a HubSpot would be broken down. The data includes sensitive personal information like names, addresses, phone numbers. All are not personal information. They're not sensitive. What's sensitive could be date of birth, tax identification numbers, licenses, potentially, if it's not on your LinkedIn page, product approval, marketing classifications. Again, not sensitive personal information. Names is not sensitive. There was a phone book once. That phone book had all of our names, had all of our addresses, had all of our phone numbers. That's not sensitive. So we have that there. Still, 3,300 Citrix NetScaler devices remain unpatched against a critical vulnerability, CVE 2025-5777, and referred to as Citrix Bleed 2. This is an out-of-bounds memory and vulnerability, results from insufficient input validation. So there's proof of concept exploits already targeting this. The zero-day attack was detected weeks before the release of some of these POC, but yet still 3,300 Citrix NetScaler devices remain unpatched. Yesterday, we talked on the show of how the Netherlands said several of their companies have been exploited using the Citrix NetScaler zero-day, so you want to make sure you get this patched up. Researchers are warning of a significant spike in brute force traffic aimed at Fortinet SSL devices. The coordinated activity per gray noise was observed on August 3rd, with over 780 unique IP addresses participating in the effort. As many as 56 of those have been detected over the past 24 hours. All the IP addresses have been classified as malicious, with the IPs originating from the US, Canada, Russia, and the Netherlands. Targets of the brute force activity included companies in the US, Hong Kong, Brazil, Spain, and Japan. The observed traffic was also targeting our 40 OS profile, suggesting deliberate and precise targeting of the Fortinet's SSL VPN. This wasn't opportunistic, but rather it was a focused activity against the device, and you want to make sure you get that taken care of. And finally, if you don't believe the cybersecurity community is the best community on the planet, I double dog dare you. So here's what's going on. I didn't go to DEF CON. I haven't gone to DEF CON since my wife and I had our son. It's hard being away from your family for very long. I love my family. I want to spend every waking moment I can with my wife and my child. I think there's nothing more important in this life than family. So I've skipped DEF CON, but DEF CON has some of the greatest people on the planet. Jake Braun, last year, one of the organizers of DEF CON, put out a call seeking volunteers and wanted to help secure water utilities. Why? Water utilities are underfunded, undermanned, a whole bunch of stuff, and yet everyone realizes that they need cyber help. He ended up with a list of 350 names volunteering to help that. They started a 9-month pilot program that paired white hat hackers with water utilities in Indiana, Oregon, Utah, and Vermont. The volunteers, many of them participants in the DEF CON, provided free services necessary to combat an escalation of array of nation-state attacks on utilities over the last 3 years. The emphasis was a no-cost hands-on support for OT mapping, password protocols, and vulnerability assessments. Ron and the other project founders are now looking to rapidly scale the program to help the country's more than 50,000 water utilities, most of which lack the staff, resources, and tools to defend themselves against increasingly sophisticated cyber threats. He said to Recorded Future News that the next phase brings together top minds from DEF CON, academia, industry, and philanthropy to provide support in ways that are designed specifically for the unique realities of the water sector. With China and Iran in mind, the Typhoon operation, and then Iran's post-October 7th terrorist attacks in Israel, trying to attack the water industry as well. So all of that is coming through with the Chinese threats. So those threats came through and the community rallied. So the effort is being financially backed by Greg Newmark's philanthropies and has already formed a partnership with the National Rural Water Association, Cyber Resilience Corps, Aspen Digital, the American Water Works Association, the Cyberspace Solarium 2.0, and others. And Cleveland, the executive director of UC Berkeley Center for Long-Term Cybersecurity and a founding partner of the Cyber Resilience Corps, said the initiative is a replicable model for more community-centered cybersecurity apparatus. That's what makes our community great. I recall post-October 7th, we in Israel, there was similar efforts to help organizations that were being targeted do the same. And now we're seeing it here in our great nation, helping the water utilities as well. And during COVID, we saw it with local hospitals and regional hospitals and rural medical centers that were being targeted by ransomware. There were similar efforts time and time again. When threat actors come knocking at our organizations, we come together as a community and we do it, and that's why it's the best community on the planet. So Jake and team at DEF CON, great job. Thank you for everything you do. It's really putting out the best face of cybersecurity, and I wish these were the stories I get to cover every single day on the show. It would be heartwarming and amazing. That's it for our show this morning. We'll be back tomorrow, 9 a.m. Eastern, live with all the latest and greatest as we wrap up a very, very busy week for cybersecurity practitioner after Hacker Summer Camp. Thank you all for tuning in. Make sure to share, follow, subscribe, like, comment. Go check out CyberHubPodcast.com for a full breakdown of this episode in written format directly in your inbox shortly after this episode finishes airing. Until then, have a great rest of your day, and most importantly, y'all, stay cyber safe.
We love feedback, so make sure to connect with us on social media and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform.